Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this Executive Cabinet meeting of Chorley Council. First item of business, is there any apologies for absence.
None received, Chair.
Can't read. Nina can't read. Second item is any declarations of any interest. Anybody need to declare? No. In that case, then, the first substantive item is the minutes of the meeting on the 16th of October. They're on pages 5 to 8 of your agenda. Has anybody got any comments on that? Any questions? In which case, I'll move that they are moved. Somebody happen to second those. Thank you, Bev. All those in favour, please show. That's carried. Any public questions?
None received, Chair.
Very definite.
Breaking your device. That's fine. Right. Obviously, the next item is item 4, is an item of mine, which is local government reorganisation, which we discussed at some length at the council meeting last week. The council took a vote on that proposal. I don't intend to go through the whole proposal in vast detail. It is a long report on your agendas. I'm sure you've all read it, and we discussed it at length last week. Obviously, the recommendations are that we go for approve the submission of the proposal for the 4 Lancashire arrangement. That was put through at the council meeting and was the view of the whole council. I think the cabinet will be crazy to go down a different route, unless you're inclined to go that way tonight, guys. Not my proposal. My proposal is to stick with what the council thought was the right idea, always is, and therefore are we happy to endorse that decision of council? Lots of nods. No comments. So I will move the proposal. Somebody happy to second that? Thank you, Councillor Law. All those in favour, please show. All right. Good. Excellent. Right. Item 5 is the Revenue Budget Monitoring Report. Councillor Wilson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So if you can see, members can see the report, there is a underspend this quarter for of £226,000. That is outlined in the paragraphs from page 220 onwards. That gives a breakdown department, directorate by directorate, where those underspends and overspends exist. But overall, the cumulative total is, as I say, £226,000 underspend, and the proposal is to allocate that to the capital and repairs and maintenance reserves that we have. You'll see that in terms of the general fund, the balance is there at 4.3 million, which is in excess of the minimum 4 million that we stipulate every year. So again, that's looking slightly more healthy, as is the earmark reserves, which we see further down in the report, which come in at about just under £7 million. In addition to that, we can see the Sorry, Chair, just lost my page there. We can see the, as I say, the general position is one of a slight improvement compared to where we did say that we need to improve the increase in the amount of earmark reserves. So as I say, the direction of travel is right, but clearly still, in a world of uncertainty, it's important that we have that comfort, as it were, knowing that there are reserves there that we need to even out if we have any difficulties in the future. So, other than that, Chair, there's nothing on the report to highlight to members of any particular note.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Are there any comments or questions on that report that anybody's got? No. In that case, Councillor Wilson has proposed the recommendations at paragraphs 2 and 3. Somebody happy to second that, please? Thank you, Councillor Hilton. All those in favour, please show. Right, thank you, that's carried. Straight on, Peter, please, to the item 6, which is the capital and balance sheet monitoring report.
Yeah, again, so little change here compared to the last time we reported the capital programme. There's been a slight increase. If we go down to paragraph 13 there, it gives the overall headline. We can see that the last time we reported it was 15.9 million, that's now gone up to 17.5. And therefore the net increase of 1.6 million is broken down on page 241. You can see 2 tables there. One that outlines where the increases come, so we've got the work doing in our Bridge Depot, We've got the work at the leisure centres that we've talked about again before, and then also the adaptation grants, formerly what was the DFG. So we can see where the increases come from, but likewise we can see where some of the schemes that we had planned for this year have slipped, so such as the town centre work, that's only going to start in 2026. So that slipped into next year's programme, as further work at all Stevenage, Brinscombe and Clayton Green. So overall, slight increase to the programme share, but nothing radically different from last time we reported. We can see, if we go further into the report on page 244, that our borrowing costs at the minute have decreased slightly from where we predicted, and the actual collection rates for council tax and business rates again are performing strongly and slightly ahead of target. So again, nothing radical to change in the reporting, but at the same time, business as usual, and if anything, slight improvements in terms of our collection rates for business rates and council tax.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Wilson. Any questions or comments on that report? No, we are very early in the year, so it's pretty what you'd expect. So that's again proposed by Councillor Wilson in the recommendations in paragraphs 2 through to 5. Does somebody want to second that, please, for me? Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Some variety tonight, Nina, different people every time. Very good, well done, Cabinet. All those in favour, please show. Excellent, good stuff. Right, we carry on with Councillor Wilson and we're on to item 7, the Chorley Q2 Performance Monitoring Report. Are you ready, Peter? Are you
ready? Yep.
Crack on, please.
Okay, so overall performance in the quarter has been good. We've got 81% of our projects that are rated as green or complete, with 73% of the corporate strategy measures and 83% of the key service measures performing on or above target. So just a couple of highlights of work that's been done, Chair. The Targeted Business Grant Programme has been launched, so within that includes things such as the Vacant Property Grant, the Upskilling Grant, the Rural Business Grant, and the Business Improvement Grant. So again, that's directed at bringing in more jobs to the area. The Destination Management Plan is well underway, and a number of events such as the Flower Show, Chorley Live, and of course coming into Christmas now, we've had the Christmas light switch on and the bonfire, which was both very, very successful and well-attended events. We've been working to review supported housing accommodation across the borough. So again, we've done a lot of work in terms of prevention of homelessness and on housing multiple occupation, which I know is a challenge across the borough, and we've developed our action plan there. And we've also been working to reduce antisocial behaviour, working with the police and other groups to make sure that we actually provide more activities for young people, as well as target the consistent problems that we have in certain areas. So some of those highlights, as I say, in terms of the work done, we can see that in terms of some of the measures and the performance. So for example, our town centre vacancy rate is below where we'd predicted, so on what we set ourselves as a target, we're doing better in that sense. We've exceeded our targets in terms of engaging with businesses. We are performing much higher than the North West average and the Lancashire average in terms of the overall employment rate. And in terms of planning performance and processing applications, again, we're performing very, very strongly ahead of targets. So there's a number of areas there that we're doing very well on. And just to go over the areas where we're slightly off track, we can see a couple of the projects, a few of the projects there. The temporary accommodation provision at Gillibrand, that has will be making progress. It is rated as amber, but that will be being brought forward. So we're hoping that the work will be complete by February 26th. So hopefully we'll have those family units there for those who need it. Looking at the affordable housing programme, again, slightly off target there. But we're working again since the autumn to actually crack on with the appraisal around the availability of affordable housing, and again that should be completed in January 26. The renovations to Astley Hall, again we're looking at January 26 for the works to start, so hopefully completed by the summer of 26. And then in terms of woodland sites, Chair, again, We have seen that hopefully planning applications will be submitted soon, and that we can again crack on with the scheme that we've done undertaken through 26. In looking at some of the measures and the indicators that are off track, the number of affordable homes that have been delivered, that again is below the target, but with the work we're doing with the local plan, with the work we're doing with our registered providers, we're hoping to pick that back up. The number of jobs created through council support and intervention, again, we know we're doing a lot of work there with the grant programme. That was slightly delayed with uncertainty about UK SPF monies. Now that's been confirmed, we're cracking on with that, so again we should see that pick up through the year. We have discussed many times before the issue of NEETs and the difficulties that we've encountered with NEETs, but that is actually improving. So although we're still off target, we can see a significant improvement on where we are now compared to where we have been. So hopefully some of those schemes and that one-on-one support that we talked about is beginning to kick in and take effect. And then lastly, the customer satisfaction. This is where it was last time. We've got a target of 80%. We're currently at 75%, but as members will recall, the target used to be last year was 70%. We've increased it to 80% to make that target stretch us in every sense of the word. And I'm pleased that it's gone up from 70 to 75, but obviously more work done to hit the target of 80. And that's all, Chair.
Thank you for that report. Excellent. Right. Any questions on anything contained therein? No? Right. Obviously, I answered all the questions as we went along. So we are asked to set the recommendation in paragraph 2, which I think we've done. Don't have to take a vote on that one, do we? No? Noted. Thank you very much. Right. We romp on to item 8, which is Councillor Howarth, and it's HMO regulatory options. Take it away, Terry.
Thank you, Chair. The paper in front of you requests your support to strengthen the Council's regulations, enabling greater control over houses in multiple occupation to an appropriate level. To proceed, we need to approve that a public consultation is undertaken in relation to what we propose, additional houses in multiple occupation licensing scheme to regulate small HMOs within the 3 to 4 occupants. We have introduced Article 4, which concerns planning permission. Currently, HMOs with 3 or more residents who are not related require planning permission. Currently, licensing is required when 5 or more tenants are sharing facilities. We wish to bring housings in multiple occupation with 3 to 4 into the licensing framework. Additional licensing will ensure that HMOs are fit for purpose. It will ensure minimum room sizes, minimum sizes for kitchens, bathrooms, bedrooms, adequate waste disposal facilities, fire standards. Following the necessary consultation, these measures will lead to a request to the Secretary of State for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howarth. Any comments or questions on that report? Anybody's got? I think it's quite straightforward. I can't see any hands going up. Sorry, Councillor Murray. I spoke too soon.
Thank you, Chair. This is, I think my comment is sort of one step ahead of this, but assuming we get the approval from the Secretary of State and our environmental health teams and others go in to check these HMOs. Today I went to the Community Partner Safety Conference, and we had a presentation from a charity about modern day slavery and exploitation. And I remember a couple of years ago that we had a notice of motion at the full council, and I think that was about the companies that we use and being aware of modern day slavery. But I just wondered if the council staff could either be refreshed in the training, so if they are going into these HMOs, which, you know, can be used for other purposes, that they're aware and understand, you know, signs, etc. Because the the charity that was there today said they actually do training for organisations. So I just wondered if, I know it's like one step ahead, but if we could be thinking about it.
Yeah, I think we're looking at, yes, do you,
Jennifer's nodding.
you're nodding, happy to do that, it's your department anyway, I'm sure you will take it on board. And I also imagine that as part of these inspections we're picking up other things that we look at within our sort of early intervention sort of agenda to pick up on any issues as other services would going in, whether they're health partners or emergency services, etc., who are supposed to report back on any concerns that they may have, and there is the mechanisms, fortunately, surely, to deal with that kind of issue. So yeah, I'm sure Jennifer's nodded, so we will roll that in. You're happy about Terry, yeah, as a response? It wasn't really your department, but that's fine. Go on.
I'm certain that the officers concerned will introduce any necessary training, having experienced it in the past.
Excellent. Right. Any other questions or comments? In that case, we are there to agree paragraphs 2 and 3, which Councillor Howard has put forward. Somebody second that for us, please. Thank you, Councillor Murray. All those in favour, please show. Good stuff, that's passed. We move on to item 9, which is Councillor Hilton, and it's the empty properties, pages 307 to 324 on your agendas.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's mine until the end of the paper. So thank you for that. So this report is to update Cabinet on the Council's response for empty properties after the overview and scrutiny task group, which examined long-term empty properties across the borough between October 22 and July 23. So officers have reviewed the task group's 8 recommendations and present a coordinated approach for approval this evening. Progress has taken time due to the issue crossing several services, and officers also felt they needed to address the impact of the council's, the new council tax premiums which were introduced in 2024. So the current position that we have at the moment, well, as of the 15th of September, there are 147 long-term empty properties. The vast majority of these properties cause no problem at all. A lot of them are tied up in probate. There are a few empty properties which are causing problems, but they are a significant minority compared to the majority that don't. The recent council tax changes now allow the council to charge 100% premium from years 1 to 5, 200% after 5 years, and 300% premium after 10 years, and that is considered to act as a major deterrent for properties remaining empty long term. So the responses to the task group, I'll go through them individually. So review the organisational placement. So the report quite clearly confirms that empty homes do not sit naturally within one particular council service. So instead, we propose that there's a multi-service group which has been established, including revenues, benefits, environmental health, planning, customer service and estates. This manages cases together and coordinates information sharing across the different services. There is a flow chart which I'm sure you can see in Appendix A, and that will be the protocol in which case we assess empty properties and go through it and take it forward to each different department from there. So consideration 2 is an empty homes dedicated post. This isn't required. We already have the expertise in-house from all the relevant departments already, and to create a specific post for that wouldn't be cost effective. We've got planning that can issue Section 215 notices, environmental health that can look at statutory nuisance, etc. So there's only a handful of problematic properties, and 78% of long-term empty properties are up to date with council tax. So improved coordination rather than extra staffing is the most appropriate there. So point 3, update the empty homes policy and train members. So revised policy is provided in Appendix B. And we have a current target of empty properties within the borough, which is roughly about 150. I think we kind of hovered just about that level generally. And to do a member learning session on this, which can, of course, be arranged. Number 4, ensuring ongoing collaboration. Well, this is proposed already in the service model that we're proposing. Number 5, provide an annual long-term empty properties report at neighbourhood area meetings. This has already been implemented since 2024, although the information can only be shared at parish level rather than ward level due to the council tax system constraints, unfortunately. But that information is available and it is presented. Point 6, streamline public reporting of suspected empty homes. So the most efficient way of reporting is directly to the council tax team, who will maintain the official long-term empty properties list. So remain alert to legislation and changes. So the new premiums is an example of that, and officers are definitely on the case with that. And to seek funding opportunities and work with partners. So while examples exist of neighbouring authorities such as South Ribble with their empty property assistance grant take-up is generally considered to be low, officers can explore future funding if appropriate. So conclusion is that a coordinated multi-service approach is required. Council tax premium reforms are already reducing the risks of properties remaining empty. So we come to Cabinet this evening for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Hilton. Comprehensive report there. Any questions or comments that anybody's got regarding that report? No, we have gone through this at quite some length previously, so we are asked to vote on the recommendations into paragraphs 2 and 3, which have been proposed by Councillor Hilton. Can somebody second that? Thank you, Councillor Lowe. All those in favour, please show. That's done. Thank you. Item 10 is also Councillor Hilton. It's the Housing Delivery Test Action Plan.
Thank you, Chair. This one will remain with me. Right, the Housing Delivery Test assesses how many homes were actually built in the last 3 years against the borough's housing requirement. Previous years were a lot stronger, as you can see in paragraph 7 of the report. More recent years have been less strong in terms of delivery of the housing. This is what's triggered the need for the action plan. The council can approve planning applications, but its influence is limited once the permissions are granted, and this is more about homes being built rather than homes approved. Exceptions to this include our own applications, such as woodlands, etc. So this challenge is compounded by rising housing requirements set by the national standard methodology. So the more houses you build, the more you have to build is basically what that's saying, which I'm sure most of us in this room agree is questionable. This was introduced in 2018 and it increases annually. Much of the housing that's been delivered in the current local plan was at an earlier point within the process. So we've delivered early, we've had more and more to build, and we've not been delivering as much lately. So the current standard method requirement is 558 homes per year, well above the 417 planned in the existing local plan, and unfortunately far beyond the 296 actually delivered last year. Because the council can't show a 5-year supply against a 558 home target, local planning policies currently receive, to an extent, some reduced weight. This has led to a lot of speculative applications in the green belt and permission principle proposals. And I'm sure you're aware at full council we're looking at ways in which we can look at that in a bit more detail with a notice of motion that went through. So the forthcoming local plan presented is the key solution to this. So it proposes a more realistic, although albeit ambitious, requirement of 334 homes per year, with actually a lower figure of 280 in the early years. So this has been agreed by officers, local plan working group and members to reflect local needs and constraints, and it offers the best chance of restoring local control over the planning decisions while supporting appropriate growth. So we need to get this back on target as soon as possible, and the new local plan is the action plan for this. I'm happy to take any questions on that, Chair.
Thank you again, Councillor Hilton. Any specific questions or comments on that report? Councillor France.
Yeah, just to say, I think there's lessons to be learnt here as we move into the new local plan from 2026 onwards, that over-delivery in the early years is not really a good idea, and maybe we just need to try and level it off a bit better across the period of the new plan when it becomes in place.
Councillor Hilton.
Yeah, that would be great if we could do that, but we're not controlling the applications that are coming in. So there was a huge amount of applications in the early stage and less moving forward. So if we could actually control that, that would be great. Unfortunately, that to an extent is beyond our control.
Agreed, and I made the same point to the Planning Minister on Tuesday morning when I had a call with him and the RMPs because on the back of our notice of motion last week, and we, that was the reason why some of the issues have come up recently in the notice of motion. Hopefully, future governments will allow us the latitude to phase delivery, which would answer a lot of those problems. But we live in hope, Councillor France, we live in hope. Go on, Kosia.
Are there something like 500 properties that have got planning permission granted but have yet to be built out? And unfortunately, they don't seem to count at all in the provision.
No.
There's a large number, isn't there?
No, and I think there are discussions that we could have about, you know, the length of planning of approvals, you know what I mean? So at the moment there's a number of years, maybe we need to foreshorten that. That's something we could look at in due course. But again, as we all know, the housing market moves in cycles, we come under pressure at certain times. I don't think anybody previously perhaps could have foreseen how quickly some parts of Buckshire would have built out, because it started quite slowly, but then it got into a very fast delivery phase, and that's, you know, you live and you learn, don't you? But comments are noted. Any other questions or comments? No, in that case we are asked to vote on recommendation in paragraph 2, proposed by Councillor Hilton, seconded by, thank you, Councillor France. All those in favour, please show. Good stuff. Done. Yourself off. We need to exclude the public and press before we go into part 2 item. There's one part 2 item to discuss. So I will propose that we exclude the public and press. Thank you, Councillor Law. Seconded. All those in favour of exclusion.